Don here, your traffic jockey in the Tri-State Traffic Show Traffic Center for this very special episode. We want to thank everyone for tuning us in here on YouTube. Again, this is the Tri-State Traffic Show. I am O'Don. We are in the Tri-State Traffic Show Traffic Center. We're all kind of decked out here for a very, very special interview. We'll be talking with Dan from Roadwaywiz. That is a YouTube channel, very popular YouTube channel on the roads around the entire country. Dan does a great job as far as giving you that point of view aspect of the roadways, and we're going to specifically talk about our roadways here in the tri-state area. So without any further delay, let's unmic the microphone there, and let's bring in Dan from Roadwaywiz. Dan, how are you, sir?
Doing great, Don. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to join us here on the Tri-State Traffic Show. So Dan, let's get started and let's just talk about kind of the genesis of Roadwaywiz. How did this all get started, and how long have you been doing this?
Well, really what started it was for Christmas 2009. I asked for a video camera from my parents. And the reason I wanted one was because I wanted to film some of our on-campus shenanigans at the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the University of Buffalo in New York State. And so I got into that. And I really enjoyed, the first person, filming and video aspect of it. But around that time, I was starting to also think about what I could do in terms of documenting travel. And my initial thought was to go back and revisit some of my favorite drives from when I was a kid growing up in the New York area. I have family ties in Wilmington, Delaware, and Binghamton, New York. I'm obviously from the New York metro area. I've lived here all my life. So, those areas are chock full of drives that I'm really nostalgic about. And I thought that it would be a good idea to go back and, kind of put them on video and kind of put them on record, for my own viewing pleasure going forward. And so that's kind of how it started. So I started the channel in 2010, and somewhere along the way, this thing became this huge nationwide beast that's now raging out of control. But I can tell you that it's been a blast every day. It's been a lot of fun to not just visit roads that I'm very familiar with, but also visit cities and areas that I'm not familiar with at all and go way off the beaten path in some cases. It's just been great fun to be able to visit different parts of the country, the different cities, the different, transportation networks, and be able to put it on some sort of media that people can go back on a computer somewhere and watch in real time as if they're looking out the windshield of my car themselves. So that's really how it started. And, we're starting our 13th year here on the channel, and I'm still having a blast. I haven't slowed down one bit, and hopefully it continues.
That's awesome, Dan. And a little backstory, when we did our pre-interview, you'd asked me about how I found your channel. When I was working at the former traffic and weather station out on Long Island, probably right around when you started, 2010, 2011, 2012, in that area. We used to do these road trips where we will put a bunch of the reporters in a car, and we would go out and explore the roads of the tri-state area. So they started cutting back on those, and I had done a few of them with some folks coming to New Jersey, because that's my home state here is New Jersey. And I really thought that was important for people to see what the roads actually look like that they've been reporting on for X amount of years. So you get to see the local landmarks. You kind of just get a better idea of what's going on. So I was doing some searching on YouTube, trying to find somebody like yourself who was driving the roads, and yours was the first channel that came up. So I sent to the upper management, I sent the channel to them and said, hey, look, maybe this is a cheaper alternative for, instead of spending time and gas or whatever about going out on the roads, that people can watch these anytime that they want to, or if something happens, an incident on, let's say, the Turnpike, you could go to your page and find video on the Turnpike, and you get an idea of what it actually looks like. You know, how many lanes are there, you know, inner lanes, outer lanes, that whole situation. So
Yeah.
they loved it. They thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So that's how I found your channel. And I got hooked on it because obviously I'm a traffic geek. I would maybe put you into that category. I don't know, as far as traffic geek or traffic enthusiast, maybe is the better word these days.
Either one works. That's fine.
Either one works, right? So, you know, so that's, you know, and I've been watching your stuff ever since. So, and I think it's just really, you know, really great stuff. Let me do this, Dan. Let me bring up the page here for everybody who is watching us. Definitely give the Roadwaywiz a subscribe here on YouTube. And again, it's just a plethora of videos. I mean, from you know, besides the tri-state area, like you said, you know, you've got videos from all around the country. Especially, we were talking just before we started about this great shot here on the eastbound side of the H3 in Hawaii. I mean, that's just an amazing picture, and I can see why you chose to use it as your banner picture. But you know, you have everything here. Maybe kind of walk us through first here. Let's do that. Let's kind of walk us through the channel. You know, how you have things organized.
Yeah, so let's go back up to that cover page, because I want to talk for a second about the H3 and Hawaii in general. You know, that has always been regarded as a bucket list item for travelers who are interested in driving and roads and whatnot. The H3 is considered the most beautiful section of the American interstate system, and it's easy to see when you drive it, you know, what they mean when they say that.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the great experiences I've ever had, you know, doing the channel in 12 years.
Actually, Dan, I think I'm just going to run a little bit of this eastbound H3 so people get a little bit of a good bit of a flavor here.
Yeah. So
what it's about.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. So, you know, you start off in, you know, metropolitan Honolulu, and then within a few minutes, you're up in the mountains, up in the sky, and then you go through a tunnel, and then once you're on the other side of the island there, you get that spectacular view of the
that's
Pacific
great
Ocean there. Yeah. And it's got everything, you know, and it's not a very long drive either, 15 minutes from end to end, but you pretty much get a little taste of everything along the way.
So does the H3, I mean, I've only been to Hawaii once in Oahu, but it goes east and west, correct?
Yeah, more or less east to west.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's signed east and west. Yeah. But
yeah, it finds a way across the mountain range there.
I see. Okay. Let me see if I can get into the scenic section. There you go. Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
It's like a scene out of almost like Jurassic Park or something. That's great.
You know, they do film. They filmed some stuff from Jurassic Park on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I could definitely see that they would. Yeah, that's just beautiful.
Right. Yeah, it's spectacular.
So now you say so you're coming up to the tunnel here, I believe.
Yeah, as you go up the viaduct here, you'll come up to a tunnel, and then you'll go through the mountain, and then when you come out, and then when you come out the other side, you'll be on the, I guess, the windward side of the island. I guess that's what they call it.
Yeah, I always get those confused.
And then you'll get the money shot of the Pacific Ocean shortly.
Right.
Yeah.
So now there's no toll involved in this bridge, is there? Or I mean, the tunnel on the other side?
No toll roads here in Hawaii, which is a relief, I'm sure, to people from New York and New Jersey.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're going to be heading into the tunnel here in just a second.
Yeah.
Come through that mountain. So now, actually looking at this now, I'm a big Magnum PI fan and Hawaii 5.0. This tunnel actually does look familiar. I feel like they probably shot some things on this, or coming out or into the tunnel or whatever, used that as, you know, backdrop and so forth.
Yeah, I've heard that they will close the tunnel every so often to do filming.
Okay.
So that wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. And for there,
Sure. Well, that's a cool looking tunnel there. Almost
the H3 took about 12 years to build. This section that we're on right now, and because it's so remote, you know, you're up in the jungle and you're up in the mountains there. It was a very long, arduous process, and also because of the fact that you're in Hawaii and you're 3,000 miles from San Francisco, it's not easy to get raw materials out there in mass quantities.
Of course,
not in a hurry. So there's a lot of engineering challenges just from the means and methods of even being able to put this thing in. and then you get into the environmental issues that came up
Right.
and all that. So
Uh-huh.
it's one of the great miracles of the American interstate system
Yeah,
that they were
that's
even
absolutely.
able to build this thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And even just coming out of the tunnel, that shot is just an amazing shot of the mountains and
Oh yeah.
continuing eastbound. And what I found interesting, Dan, in that tunnel was that there actually was a full shoulder. Not too many
Yes.
tunnels have a full shoulder.
Especially around these parts.
Especially these parts, yeah. You're lucky you got a travel lane. To be honest with you, I mean, it's a pretty tight ride, because I was to say the inside of it kind of had a little bit of a battery tunnel, midtown tunnel kind of vibe to it, maybe just the sides of it kind of looked on this. This is your money shot here. Look at that.
This is the money shot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Spectacular. Awesome stuff. That's great.
So if you're into travel and you can afford the trip, I mean, head out to Hawaii and check it out. It is, the video will never be able to do it justice. I mean, it's 1,000 times more spectacular in person than it is on video. But even on the video, it's not bad either. So that's the Hawaii part. And then as you go through, there's I've got 46 states represented.
Wow, 46 states.
Up to 46. Yeah, I added Minnesota about a month ago.
Okay.
And I'm going to be adding Oklahoma next month.
Beautiful.
And so that'll leave just Alaska and North and South Dakota.
Okay.
Last three.
Very nice. Okay.
I've got some sort of representation from all the other states, though.
Beautiful.
At this point. Yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. It's just a and date myself, but encyclopedia of the roads. I mean, this is just tremendous stuff. I mean, it's just,
I didn't used to think of it that way, but that is a good way of describing it. It's an encyclopedia of footage of our country's major metropolitan areas.
Right.
So I think I've been to 48 out of the 50 largest metro areas by population.
Okay.
Now. So you can kind of go through on your own time between different states, between different cities and whatnot, and check things out. And it's all located in one spot here.
No,
so
look.
I think it's very useful. It's got a lot of different applications. Obviously, yours, how you found the channel initially, is one that I never thought would be a use that people would tell me about.
Right. Right.
There's all sorts of different ways that people can benefit from this.
Even another one, Dan, too, is there's a lot of people move from outside of different areas. If they move from tri-state area to Hawaii or Florida or whatever it is, and they're looking maybe to see what it looks like now if they've been away for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever, and instead of actually having to jump on a plane and go, you can just look at your channel here and go through, pick the roads that you've kind of mapped out. This is a bit of a Google Street View to a degree, but from a much better perspective at my point, my opinion, I should say. So, you can kind of get an idea of what's changed, what's not changed, that kind of thing. So it can be a little historic, nostalgic for some, who may be looking at some of these roads that maybe they used growing up as a kid or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in a way, it's not that different from Google Street View, but it gives you a great idea of what it's like to actually travel.
Right.
You don't get that feeling anyway else, really.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So now is this a secondary channel for you?
So that's another channel that I run. It's kind of been dormant for the last 2 to 3 years, something like that. It's mainly like northern and western New York content.
Okay. Yeah. Robert Moses. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Syracuse, Buffalo, Niagara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. Now, I'm coming back to the main page here. So, a playlist, would that be where you break it out into states? Is that the way you have this set up?
Yeah. So you'll see if you go through like the created playlist, you'll see that there's at least one for each state that I've been to. And then there's some other stuff as well. Like you'll see there's live content down below.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of different methods that I can get content out there.
Sure.
One of the things that the pandemic really did, it allowed me to experiment a lot with live content from my, apartment,
Mhm.
doing shows,
Yeah, sure.
from there. And
Right.
that's how really the webinars took off. And that's how the virtual tours and the, other live content that I do really, got a foothold. So,
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, it's not just dash cam stuff that I do. I also do other stuff as well. It's aimed to be more educational in nature, but
Okay.
it's something that I really like doing, and
Great.
friends who do it with me really enjoy it too. So it's a
So
good
you got,
time.
yeah, these virtual tours are really interesting to me as well. Now, this is so what now?
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. So
um,
the virtual tour
yeah.
is basically where we take a full, either the entire length of a road or a substantial section of a road,
Okay.
and we just run it from end to end
In real time and kind of get
in
a
real.
almost like a reaction video type.
Kind of, yeah. And we
Yeah.
talk about the history of the road
Oh, that's
and
great.
the highlights along the way,
Yeah.
um, that kind of thing. So obviously, the
That's
first
great.
one we did was one in New Jersey,
Yeah. Parkway. Yeah.
and then there have been others that we've done all over the
Uh-huh.
country, and but
Okay.
it all follows the same formula.
Sure, sure. That's
Yeah.
great. That's fantastic. Again, just a great resource. And I mean, you got almost 18,000 subscribers. I mean, you're doing something right. I mean, I'm coming from a guy who's only got 103 and trying to get things up and rolling, but you're absolutely doing something right. I mean, you're getting, a ton of views on a lot of these videos, which is fantastic to see. And I hopefully it's a lot of, even kids or whatever, just to get a feel for what different areas the country look like, even just in their own neighborhoods, maybe when they're traveling with their parents, that kind of thing, they're in the back seat, they get an idea. Hey, I saw this, I recognize this, or I mean, you know my upbringing, it was a lot of, obviously it was before GPS or Google Maps or any of this stuff. It was, everything was in landmarks.
Hmm.
There was always something on the corner or whatever, make a right hand turn, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So in my on air days doing traffic, that's what I would do, would add that into my reporting and
Hmm.
say, hey, coming out up to whatever, the post office, whatever it was,
Yeah.
and people loved it, because it just kind of gave you an idea more of, other than saying it's on, 517 in Monmouth County. Okay, well, there's maybe a lot of people don't know where 517 even goes.
Yeah. The best traffic reporters that I've heard are the ones who can humanize it
Yes.
and make
Yep.
it more personal, like
Mhm.
make it better understandable.
Correct.
you know
Right.
and
Exactly.
if you have an understanding of the local landmarks and the local terminology and all of that,
Yep.
people will automatically catch on a lot quicker to what you're talking about. And
This is true.
I've heard many traffic reports from many parts of the country, and let me
Mhm.
tell you, it varies wildly sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That human element,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you can tell the person knows what they're looking at, sometimes but that, so I think it's very important that um that the local reporters know. I mean, it sounds trivial to say this, but they have to know what they're looking at, and they have to know how to communicate information
Sure.
effectively. Um,
Sure.
and there's a lot of people around New York that I grew up listening to who were great at it.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I have a very lofty standard for my traffic reporters, because
Okay.
I expect great work, and I've
Yes,
heard
of
nothing
course.
but great work in this part.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah. The from the TV end of things, in a lot of cases, around the country, whatever, and even here, is that a lot of times that they will try to bring in somebody new or put somebody new for the first time on air doing traffic. And that always upset me, because to me, they were not giving traffic the respect that it deserves, very much, like they would respect the weather and other aspects of a newscast. But they always bring kind of the newbie, the person in to do it. And it would be somebody maybe from outside the area, whatever. And it's immediately apparent how fast it goes wrong and downhill, in my opinion, when they're talking about the Parkway or they're talking about the Turnpike or whatever, and not adding that local flavor, like you said, or not understanding where these roads are. It's immediately apparent to anybody watching who's watched or lived in the area for a length of time, and honestly, traffic, from my standpoint, for television, traffic is one of the most difficult things to do on the air, because again, if you don't know it, you'll never get it, really, unless you continuously practice at it and that kind of thing. But there's so many moving parts to all of it, even just talking about transit, the train lines and things like that. There's so many different moving things that are all going on at the same time. And it just gets so overwhelming at times if you really don't know what you're talking about or what you're doing, And
it changes on a dime.
It changes on a dime.
How many times have you seen on a morning commute where at 6:30 everything's great, and then by 7:30 everything is
absolutely. You're right about that. Yes. I've always said that you never say it's quiet in the traffic business, because as soon as you say it, it all goes to hell and goes right down the drain.
Right.
Which has happened, which has happened to me many times. All right, Dan. So let's do this, since we showing you the virtual tour. This first thing, let's kind of go in the format that I use. I usually start in New Jersey, then go to New York City for the tri-state traffic. So let's start in New Jersey. Let's get into a conversation about some of your favorite roadways in New Jersey that you find interesting, that are just your personal favorites, ones that you really enjoy driving.
Well, New Jersey is full of nostalgia for me. A little bit of backstory about me. I grew up in the Hudson Valley in New York, but I have family in Wilmington, Delaware. And our family every year vacations down in Wildwood, New Jersey.
Okay.
And that's been the case all my life. So some of my earliest fond memories of travel involve roads like the Turnpike, like the Parkway going down the shore. And to this day, actually, those are two of my favorite highway drives to do, just from the nostalgia point of view. Those are always roads that I love to revisit. Really the upper end of the Turnpike, say from north of interchange 9. That is just a fantastic drive. I like urban drives, but I also like those really heavy industrial drives as well, with the scenery and all that.
Right.
That's an awesome trip to take. And the Parkway down in like Cape May County, that's a stretch that I really like. I just like how quiet and calm it is. The Parkway's got a little bit of everything, right? I mean, it's got Cape May County,
which is
very calm and quiet, and then you're in the metro area, and it kind of ends a bit quietly up at the New York state line. But in between there, it's got a little bit of everything there, and so
that's true. Yeah, it definitely has a lot to offer. I'm just bringing up the map here, just kind of give people a little bit of an idea of where we're talking about. There's the Turnpike, the spurs there, and you correctly said interchange, and that's another thing too that from somebody who's from out of state. They start calling it exits.
Yeah.
We just don't call it that. We call it what we call it, and their interchanges on the Turnpike and their exits on the Parkway.
They're very touchy about their interchanges on the Turnpike.
That they are. Because honestly, I mean, with the Turnpike, it really is a full interchange, because not necessarily with the Parkway, you may not have entrance to the north or southbound side on both sides from every exit.
Right.
Some do not, and then so it's not, in my mind, a full interchange. Where the Turnpike, they're all full interchanges, because you got to get on and get off, get the ticket, or God, I'm really dating myself with the tickets, but the Easy Pass or whatever, and you got to go through that. So there's an gantry way to get through onto that. So that's why they are called interchanges. But you're right, though. The Garden State Parkway is a very interesting road. There's a lot of history behind the Parkway. Fact is, it's funny because I attended a lecture last night about the history of the Jersey Shore, and the author of this gentleman, Kevin Weiss is his name, Woyce. The Parkway was part of his presentation, and I found it interesting when he talked about the Parkway obviously being completed all the way down to Cape May, and certainly made things so much easier to access the Jersey Shore for so many more people once the rail service ceased to exist. Whatever that year was, I don't know, but the Parkway was began in Union County 1954, I think. The longest time I had a picture of in the Clark area. That's where one of the first sections was between Union and the Driscoll Bridge.
Right, somewhere in the
Um,
130s there. Yeah.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And again, as I mentioned to at the lecture last night, was the story that I was always told. How true this is or not, I do not know. How to verify it, I'm not quite sure. But I was always said that between Union and Woodbridge, that stretch from about 120, 129 up to 142, that whole stretch was built with like federal money or federal bonds, and that they were not actually able to toll it from the state because of the money they borrowed to build the road. How true that is, I don't know, because
Well, yeah.
honestly, in the Clark area, you could easily, I mean, that's probably one of the widest points coming through that area, that you would easily see that they would have told that 20 years, 50 years ago, whatever.
Yeah, they're actually, so I think that you're right that that was the first section that was built. It was built before they organized what became known as the Turnpike and Parkway Authority.
Okay.
So it was, I believe it was built with public money. And so the feds have a rule that you can't go back and toll a road that was already built and paid for with public funds or something.
I see.
Like that.
Okay.
So that's why that stretch that you mentioned before doesn't have tolls on it.
Right. Okay.
They would have gone back and added them, absolutely, if they could, but there's a rule that stipulates that you're not allowed to do that. Now, over recent years, there's been discussion about, well, what happens if we add high occupancy toll lanes along there? Are we allowed to toll those lanes within the same right of way of the Parkway? And that's an open question that's been debated and hasn't really reached a resolution as far as I know. But you can tell that it's a different section from the rest of the road, right? Because you just look at the architecture of the overpasses. It's built very similarly to the parkways in New York City and Long Island.
Correct.
And that was the original concept of the road in general, that they were going to build something like that, except it would be along the whole Jersey Shore. However, they built that first section around Clark and ran out of money.
Oh, okay.
So they had to figure out a way to build the rest of the road. And so what they decided to do was create a parkway authority that would operate and toll the road. And by the time this new road got off the ground, design standards had changed. The vision of what the road was going to look like changed. And so we get more of a early interstate highway era design out of it. Still effective as far as moving people from point A to point B, but the look of the road changed conceptually during that period of time. And so ever since then, it's been considered a toll road, although the sections that are not tolled today are the ones that were first built, maybe even as early as 1950, by this predecessor DPW agency that was run by New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to find your video of the Parkway, just so folks that are watching can maybe get a better idea where we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how those Parkway videos have got to be pretty old, don't they? I don't think I've ever actually.
Yeah, right. That was probably one of your first ones that you did was 2010. It says August 7th of 2010.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about nostalgic drives and drives that I wanted to cover for this thing, and so the Parkway was right up at the top of the list of roads that I wanted to do right from the start. So, and so these are pretty old videos, but I mean, I've gone back and revisited it a number of times since then. But
the section in Clark and heading south out of 135.
Yeah. But you see the design, the architecture of these overpasses here, and that's a very unique feature, exclusive to this stretch of the Parkway, and that's because it was built to a different design standard.
Right. So. It looks very much like the Southern State Parkway and the Northern State.
It sure does. Yeah.
Those overpasses, looks very much like it. 2010, I was just trying to see if the at the old Madison Hill Rest area, I think we actually just passed it, but there was a cell phone tower that is decorated like a pine tree, and then actually had its own Facebook page for quite a number of years, but that was like one of the first ones that was camouflaged to look like a pine tree. But,
I think I followed that tree at one time or
probably another. It was fairly popular. No question about that. But it's down further. I'm going to see if I can just fast forward it because I want to get your thoughts on what maybe could be done. Let me just bring it down. It's really this So it's this whole interchange here with Route 1 coming up. It's right in here. You know, they renumbered, you know, the exit numbers, but this is 130 here.
Yeah.
But so as you come south here, it's right here at Route 1. And I think I'm going to pause it. The biggest bottleneck is right there with this railroad bridge, right in here. That, you know, for all these years, you know, I would have thought that they would have tried to just expand it out a little bit more to get this acceleration ramp lane coming off of, I think at that point it's Wood Avenue by Metro Park. But then it comes down into here, it squeezes down the 4 lanes and then goes back to 5 once you come on the other side of into Route 1. And then the biggest thing really is for me is the Route 1 interchange here, because as you get south, you have to come over to you have to merge into a lane for about 300 feet because they put a they put what I don't know what I'm trying to get the word right, like an exit only lane kind of thing, whatever, right from Ford Avenue onto Route 1.
Right.
And that screws the traffic up back on the Parkway every single time, every single day. You can't win with that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so you'd have to eliminate the bridge or widen it or something like that.
Yeah, and I think the bridge is fairly active, quite honestly. I think that's still an active train line, freight line or something like. At least I think. I don't know. I've never really seen a train on the bridge ever in my life, but they say it is because they repainted the bridge not too long ago. But I think it's more the Route 1 thing. It's messed up. It's kind of messing traffic up. But you know,
and that's a very busy exit there anyway, because that is the last free exit going southbound.
You're right. Yes.
I think. Unless, well, maybe you can.
You can get off of here for
maybe you can get off there. Okay.
Route 9. And again, this year I've always tried to figure out exactly what they call that quasi service road, whether that's technically it's still under the auspices of the Turnpike Authority, because I think it's still run by the Parkway.
Okay.
So this section here that parallels getting out to the Driscoll Bridge, but I've never really figured out or who to ask, like, what is that? Is that part of Route 9 or what? Like, it just doesn't really have a name. It's just kind of like next to the Parkway. It's really the exit ramp, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, this whole mixing bowl area around here where the Turnpike meets the Parkway and 440 and Route 9 and Route 1. And I mean, it's all just, you could almost classify it as one giant interchange.
Yes,
complex.
You're
it just goes on for miles at a time.
Yeah.
There's ramps coming and going constantly there.
Yeah. You know, and then they're doing the road work. You know, obviously, Parkway here. You know, once you get through, obviously the biggest mess of it all, and really have nowhere to go with it, at least in my opinion, is obviously in Essex County. It was between 78 up to 280. You know, they've redone more work on those bridges at 280, so they made the egress onto 280 a little bit easier, and it's also easier now they took the toll plaza out when you go north. At least that's a little bit of help. But you know, you've got nowhere to go coming through Irvington, East Orange, even into Bloomfield. I mean, what are you going to do? Put a second level on it? I mean, it is kind of what it is. I don't think there's any really room for expansion.
No, that's another example of 1950s urban highway construction where you just shove something in anywhere you've got a couple hundred feet of right of way and call it a day. And you're right, there's no real way to expand that. You'd have to build a new road somewhere, you know, whether that's nearby or something more extravagant than that. But you're kind of stuck with what you got between
kind of stuck with what you got.
150, that area. But
now,
I do like what they're doing at 145, rebuilding that interchange, rebuilding the ramp movements there. I think that's going to help matters.
Yes, I agree with you on that. Yeah,
it'll improve the level of service, you know, for a significant part of the day. I mean, you'll still have bottlenecks there, but it'll be better than it was. I'll say that.
Because I think next up is the ramp to the southbound Parkway from 280 out of the toll plaza. I think that's up next. That one that goes underneath.
Okay. Yeah.
It kind of comes around. It's only one lane, but I believe that the plan is to make that 2 lanes getting onto the Parkway. Now, how that all merges in with the Parkway, I'm not sure what that plan looks like, but that would certainly help. Coming out of that toll plaza is where, you know, it's jammed every single night morning, but there's nowhere, for that to go. And then the Parkway expansion that they're doing further south, what is that, from like Atlantic City down, that they're adding another lane, I think they're still doing some work there in the upper 30s, like 38, 39 exits.
That was a project that they had been talking about as long as I had been alive. And adding the lane because remember, they started adding a lane as far north as Tom's River.
Right.
And so the phase that they're in right now, I believe, is the last phase of that long-term vision of adding a third lane in each direction from as far north as Tom's River all the way down to Ocean City. And when they replaced the southbound span of the Great Egg Harbor Bridge outside of Ocean City, they built it 3 lanes wide so that at some point in the future they could continue the 3 laning further south into Cape May County. Actually, they built it wide enough to put both directions of traffic. You can actually squeeze 4 lanes into that.
Okay.
So that when the time comes to replace the northbound bridge, they can put both directions of traffic on the southbound bridge.
Right. So at least somebody had the foresight ahead of time to go ahead and plan for that, Yeah,
you don't always get that level of foresight,
right. I can imagine.
Country, but no, the Turnpike Authority really got it right with that project. Yeah. And so I think what you're seeing now with the widening further south down by Ocean City is really the last of the most immediate phases of the 3-lane project all the way down. And, my first memories of that drive were when it was 2 lanes in each direction. And I remember it being a nightmare at times if you caught it at the wrong time.
Yeah.
But from Tom's River down through Barnegat and Galloway, Summers Point, it's routinely been a nice drive. Like it's really helped things out a lot. And then they also addressed the interchange at the Atlantic City Expressway somewhere along there too. So that moves a bit, more freely. It's not nearly the congestion point that it once was.
Right.
The Parkway has improved drastically in my lifetime, especially the last 10 years or so. So it's I mean, it's always been a favorite drive of mine, but nowadays it just rides a lot better than it used to.
Right. When you're talking, Dan, about expansion and so forth, obviously this section here, getting out of westbound on the 76, the Aljo curve, that whole area, is named for the nightclub that put the sign up. That's why it's called the Aljo curve. This whole thing is still got a while to go, but it looks like once they finish this will improve this traffic flow, morning and evening, which I think will be a welcome relief for everybody here in this Deptford, Cherry Hill, Washington Township area, because it's always been just a mess all the time. And the other expansion, which has really worked, obviously, is this Turnpike, where you don't have to do the merge anymore, out by interchange 8A down through 6.
Right.
They expanded those lanes there, and it has worked, no question about it. Very rarely, during the morning commute, do I see a traffic delay, and if it is, it's because of an incident. It's not volume. And it always seems to move. So that's one project in my mind that really, has done the job that it was supposed to do.
Yeah, and the thing about that Turnpike widening is that before they did that at 8A, you used to, if you were going south, you used to just jam up daily right at where the 2 roadways came together there, just because there was so much traffic trying to go south of 8A at that point. You don't have that at 6, where the new merge point is, because so much traffic on the Turnpike South exits either at 7A for 195, or it exits at 6 to head to Pennsylvania. So by the time you get south of 6, there's not as much traffic there, and so the roadways can come together naturally there. That's a more logical endpoint of that quadruple roadway setup, because that's where traffic has thinned out to the point where it doesn't make too much of a difference. If you have one roadway or 2 there.
Right. One of my favorites, because I want to get to the other regions, and we got another about 25 minutes left in this show. I think
we could spend the whole day just talking about Jersey. I'm sure.
I know, right? Yeah, we may have to. We're gonna have to bring you back on again for a part 2, a part 3 kind of a thing.
Okay.
But I find fascinating, again, it's just the way they name the road and stuff like that, is this interchange here in Woodbridge, is that you've got southbound 440, which actually goes west, then turns into northbound 287, which then continues to go west on a map, but is labeled northbound 287. Is, for anybody out of state, is the most confusing thing. And the reason I bring it up is because for a long time, as you come down that service road, the thing that I was telling you coming off at 129 to get over to the Raritan Center, because that's where News 12 is, in the Raritan Center, to come down into this area here, there were signs for 440 in Perth Amboy. And they actually had two sets of signs. They had one set that you come up on, it said 440 east and west. And then there was a sign no further than 500 feet from that one, an overhead sign that said 440 north and south. So you had two signs having a road going 4 different ways. It was amazing. I loved that. And I would have loved to have, I mean, obviously those signs are gigantic, but if I had room in my apartment here, that sign that said 440 east and west would have been a beautiful sign to keep as a keepsake.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it's just, it's just so confusing the way they label roads and whatnot and so forth. But all right, so I got one last question for New Jersey, then we're going to jump into the city, and we're going to do that via the bridges, because I want to talk about the Goethals Bridge and some of the construction that we've seen over the last 10 years or so. Do you know what the smallest New Jersey state highway is?
Yeah, by length, you mean?
Yes, by length. Yeah.
Would it be Route 59?
It is. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at you. Wow, you're the only person that I know that knows that other than myself. Fantastic.
Wow. Okay.
Look at you. Very nice.
That's what road enthusiasm will do to you. You'll know these really weird and random facts that nobody else knows.
Yeah. You can drive Route 59 both sides in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's only 1/10 of a mile, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's right. Connects North and South Avenues in Cranford. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been on that once before, and don't ask me how I ended up on it, but I remember seeing on the traffic signal, they have that tab that tells you what street it is, and it had a Route 59 shield on. I'm like, I don't know where this came from. It was the only one that I saw. I found out later that that 500-foot block or whatever it was a state highway. Route 59. So I'm like, all right, well, there you go. Right.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Cranford, as probably just about everybody at this point knows. So to me, it was always Lincoln. It was Lincoln Avenue, but we never even knew it was a state highway. And that sign is somewhat new, because it never was signed 59. Another good friend of mine, Bernie Wagonblast, who's a traffic enthusiast, and you may even know him. He's from Cranford as well, and he said that on the overpass there actually is some sort of a designation about State Route 59. I have yet to find it, but it's there somewhere, and it's probably overgrown. I just missed it. But if I find it, I will take pictures and send them to you.
Okay, cool.
New
Jersey has a lot of weird state highways like that. That are not. They exist, and then they're not really well signed, and then some of them. There's a whole backstory to a lot of them. How they've just changed hands over the years, and they're still on the state route log, but they're not maintained necessarily, and they're not signed, and all that jazz. You got 3 hours to talk about New Jersey state highways.
I know.
That's a topic that we could talk about.
Yes. We'll consider this as part 1, and then we'll do other parts throughout the rest of the year. Because one last quick thing is right here, but I'm old enough to remember where 24 was not finished between Morristown, Florham Park, and over to Short Hills.
Right.
So you actually had to get off on 124, and for the longest time that wasn't finished. And I'm also old enough, and I'm not dating myself into being an old man, but maybe I am at this point. But this section of 78 wasn't finished either through the Watchung Reservation between exits 41 over to 48 for Route 24. So all of this was unfinished here, and for the long, and that was probably, they didn't finish that maybe until maybe the late mid 80s, give or take. So it wasn't, in the grand scheme of things, wasn't very, very long ago that took place.
I don't think 24 was fully done until the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right about that too. Yeah, that's right. That
was kind of a black hole of travel if you had to go out that way.
That's right.
That was not very well serviced at all.
Absolutely. All right, Dan. So we're looking at Staten Island now. So let's go into New York City now. and
Let's do it.
tell us some of your favorite roads. But we're going to start. Let's do by borough here, so we kind of compact it for this first episode. Again, we're going to have you back on again to get even more in depth with a lot more stuff.
I think
But,
we're gonna have to at this point.
yeah, I think so. So let's
Yeah.
start with Staten Island here. So let's talk about the Goethals Bridge. You know, I used to travel that going to Long Island for 12 years. My father did that going out to Kennedy Airport for 30 years. I mean, just one of the worst bridges in the planet. You know, the lanes were so narrow. You know, you had nowhere really to go. I mean, I honestly, I think I got hit on that bridge twice. The truck next to me was just so close. I had nowhere to go, and it just clipped my mirror, you know?
Yeah. I don't think that those were even 10-foot lanes on that bridge. I think it was like 9 feet, 9.5 feet, something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. You know,
Mhm.
even cars couldn't pass each other on that thing.
Yes, it was very, very difficult.
Yeah. But any discussion about my favorite infrastructure in New York City has to start with the bridges.
Yes.
You know, the Goethals was one of those I didn't have a lot of backstory with growing up, but I've come to appreciate the old structure, even though it's no longer with us, as you know, the new structure was built and all of that.
Right.
You know, the Bayonne Bridge, the story with that one is really interesting. You know, how they recently there it is. How they recently raised the roadway on that, which is not a kind of a project that you see very often.
No.
Usually in situations like this, they'll just build a new bridge altogether. But that's one of the things about that. That just goes to show you how well the arch for this thing was built initially, because they think they've got at least another 100 years of service life in that arch. And so why get rid of it? You know, just put a new roadway another 50 to 75 feet higher and, you know, call it a day.
Right.
The thing that was really interesting about that project was how they were able to build a new roadway above the existing roadway. So for a period of time, that arch was supporting two different roadways.
Right.
There was enough structural capacity in the arch that it was able to do that easily.
It's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it's just amazing engineering. You know, New York is full of great engineering everywhere you look.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know, this is one of the lesser known examples, I think, because it is Staten Island and because it is, you know, somewhat far out of the way.
Right.
But you know, the work that they did on the Bayonne is really fascinating to me, and also the new Goethals Bridge, which we see on the screen here. You know, that was a very well executed project, obviously well overdue. There was discussion maybe about retaining the old bridge for some use, either as, you know, one direction of traffic or as a pedestrian facility. But, you know, when you're dealing with a bridge that's about 100 years old, you know, and it's in the decrepit state that it is, sometimes it's just best to start from scratch. And so that's ultimately what they did here. And I have to say, I had the chance to walk the walkway on the Goethals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's funny because it was like 5 days before New York went into lockdown.
Oh, okay.
Because I think the path opened,
and
then within a couple of weeks we were in lockdown. But I got it in during that interval of time. And it's kind of difficult to get to, like the access points for it. But if you can find a spot to park, either in Elizabeth or on Staten Island, and go for the walk, it's definitely worth checking out and doing. You get some nice views of the railroad bridge on the north side of the Goethals there, the one that goes over Arthur Kill. You got a nice view of Manhattan from there on a clear day. And the bridge is a nice structure to walk. It's a very pleasant, simple structure to look at. I quite like it. I also like the walkway on the Bayonne Bridge that they put in too. Those are two.
I've never done that one. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah, I was just looking on your channel because I know I did see it where you did a comparison of before this new bridge was built and the new one, and a split screen, which I thought was genius.
And I have to give a shout out to my friend Jason, who runs the YouTube channel 504 Road Trips.
Okay.
He is the one who kind of came up with that presentation style, and so we just kind of applied his idea to my idea for that, and I think it came out really well. So
absolutely, it's great. It's just amazing how much how much that was changed, on the Elizabeth side, and basically just a complete transformation. So it's it's just unbelievable, and Honestly, it's a nice looking bridge. You're not going to lie to you. You know, I mean, it is a fairly nice looking bridge. You know,
Yeah.
it's modern. It's got some style, some styling cues. Now, it's I find it's very similar to. I think I flashed the picture up just a minute ago. This is the Kosciuszko Bridge. Am I correct, Dan?
That is correct. Yep, there it is.
So it almost has a little bit of the same kind of styling in it.
Yeah, I mean they are derived from the same design concept,
Right.
right? The cable stay bridge concept. The thing that makes the Kosciuszko, or what we like to call it as the K bridge, what makes this one unique is that it just has a single tower for each direction of traffic instead
I
of a
see.
pair of pylons. So that makes it a little bit different. It makes it a little more interesting to look at, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Now, but did
this-
you have a? I know you sent. I'm sorry to interrupt. You know,
yeah.
you sent me some drone pictures. Was one of them of this or?
No drone pictures for the New
Okay.
York City
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
This picture that we're looking at right now, I actually took in the hours before they opened the westbound direction.
Okay.
So that's what I'm standing on right there. And this was taken, I think, on the same day. This picture here. But you can see how the two structures have a single pylon, but they're kind of
Right.
reflected.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a mirror image effect
Uh-huh.
going on there.
Right.
It's a very pleasing effect, if you ask me, and it's a very
Yes.
unique kind of structure. And certainly for that part of Brooklyn and Queens that doesn't have a whole lot of modern looking architecture in it.
Right.
This thing certainly stands out against that backdrop.
Right. What I'm going to do now, Dan, I'm going to take the picture out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the map just for those who are not familiar with what we're talking about. So this is in Queens. Here it comes across the it's the Gowanus Canal, I think, right?
That is what is that
Newtown Creek. I'm sorry,
yeah, Newtown Creek. Yeah,
right. So this connects basically the LIE down to the southbound side of the BQE or westbound side, whichever traffic report you're listening to at the time. You know, we're in the area of the Midtown Tunnel down to the Williamsburg Bridge. So just so folks get it's in this western section of Queens that we're discussing here right now.
Yeah.
But so let's do this because we got about another 15 minutes or so, and we're never going to get to the rest of the regions. We're going to have to bring it back, Dan. So we're going to we'll concentrate here on New York City. Let's go. I know this is one of the areas we talked about in the pre-interview is this whole Bruckner project that's going on here over by the Hunts Point Drawbridge. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So one of the really interesting omissions from the New York City expressway system for the last 50 or 60 years is that there's never been direct access between the expressway network and the Hunts Point terminal market, which I believe someone can fact check me on this, but the terminal itself takes in a huge percentage of the city's produce that gets shipped out to markets. And there's all sorts of other, goods that come and go through there on a daily basis.
Right.
And yet it's never had any direct connection to the interstate system or any easy means of getting to the other boroughs by truck. And so that whole area of Hunts Point has just been full of truck traffic for decades. And it's always been a project that's been on the wish list of New York City, but it never really saw the light of day until they started construction a couple of years ago. What we're looking at on this camera, this is a camera positioned, I believe, on the ramp that gets you onto the northbound Sheridan from the eastbound Bruckner. And you're looking east along the Bruckner corridor. So there are 3 different phases to this project. The first 2 are actually in progress right now, concurrently. Hunts Point 1 is going to address the expressway main line between the Sheridan and Bronx River Avenue. It's going to replace several of the structures, the overpasses and bridges along that stretch. Interestingly, it's not touching the Hunts Point drawbridge. The drawbridge itself is not part of the project.
Okay, so the drawbridge is right here, Dan. Right.
It would be beyond that new flyover that you see.
So it's on over this way or closer to us here.
It would be more in the background.
More in the background. I see.
Yeah. So that new flyover is one of the centerpieces of phase one. It's a
Right,
new
right in
direct
here.
ramp that's going to connect the Bruckner with the Hunts Point terminal. And it's a flyover that kind of does a little bit of a loop turn over Amtrak and then comes across the expressway and heads south along Edgewater Road. Um,
Right in this area here. So here's the
yeah.
what is this? The Bronx River here. This is the drawbridge right in there. So that camera, I believe, is right in here somewhere.
It's I think it's on that overpass where the
Right,
Sheridan turns north. Yeah, I
right
think
in
that's where
here.
that
I
is.
see.
Yeah. So that ramp is going to start on that northbound Sheridan and then take basically a 180-degree turn and then head south over the Bruckner and then touch down along Edgewater Road.
Right
And
in
then
here.
that's going to take you down to the terminal that way.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that is really the major new piece that's being added for this project. And you can see that the bridge is more or less in place at this point.
Yeah.
I spent about 8 months on that project.
Okay.
Most predominantly, it was night work. Which I have to tell you, in the city, night work does have its perks. I know it sounds horrible, but the NYPD doesn't issue parking tickets overnight, and the commute
Sure.
is very quiet. My
Yeah.
hours were 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So
Okay.
when I was driving down at 9 o'clock at night, it was very easy to get there.
Yeah.
And nobody gave me any trouble as far as parking. So,
This is true. This is true. Yeah.
it did have its perks. I mean, I ended up getting out of it because I couldn't take it anymore. But
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
actually it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so the Hunts Point one has challenges. There's squeezing that new ramp into very constrained real estate, and then we're also dealing with Amtrak because we're right adjacent to or above their right of way almost exclusively on this project. So there's all sorts of different factors that have to be considered when you're talking about means and methods for construction.
Right. Right.
It just makes it all it makes it all last longer, and it makes it more
Yeah.
challenging. But it looks like they're making some good
Making some
headway.
good progress. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, and again, they've, with the, to slow down traffic on the Sheridan, they changed it from an expressway to a boulevard. So and I think there's traffic lights on there now. I've been on the Sheridan, I think, maybe once in my life, but now I believe that there's traffic lights.
There are, yeah.
There
So
to slow things down.
Yeah, I think they added 3 traffic lights there, and mainly they're there as crosswalks, for pedestrians and local street access.
Okay.
They've also expanded a lot of the parkland along the Bronx River in that area. So they're trying to beautify that whole area, the South Bronx there. Yeah.
Okay. So what other things kind of stand out to you? We've got about 10 minutes left in the show that you want to talk about just for the 5 boroughs. Anything that stand out? Any of the bridges, Throgs Neck, Whitestone?
Yeah, I mean,
what is your favorite bridge? We'll start with that maybe.
Well, I was of the ones in the 5 boroughs, I would say the George Washington is the one that I come back to the most often.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, I had that book, The Little Red Lighthouse and the Great Bridge.
Yep.
You've heard of that one, right?
I have heard of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's kind of part of where my love affair with that bridge started. And it's still one that I return to on a regular basis, from a nostalgic point of view.
Sure. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
A beautiful
And
bridge.
there are other great ones too. I really like the Throgs Neck myself.
I was about ready to say the same thing with me, because when you come, for me, kind of the, your H3 money shot really is going back to the Bronx, because as you come around that curve there, you see that little section of, oh gosh, what's the name of the neighborhood? I know somebody who lives in this area too. It's going to escape me. Maybe it's Locust Point. It's this little neighborhood here with the water. It almost looks like Cabot Cove from Murder, She Wrote. Like the setting of almost looks like a backlot for a movie or something when you come this way into the Bronx.
Yeah. But yeah, you really get some good money shots on that bridge.
Oh yeah.
In both directions, really.
Absolutely.
I like the one coming out of the Bronx as you go off on the elevated structure there.
Yep.
And you make that sweeping turn to the right, and you can see the suspension span off in the distance there. That to me is one of my favorite images of New York City bridges right there.
Wonderful.
I like the RFK. that's another one that I have a lot of nostalgia for, especially the suspension span over to Queens.
Yep.
That's a great, Art Deco masterpiece, that
Mm-hmm.
thing. I also gotta mention, the Verrazano. That's another one of my favorites. That it's of course our nation's largest suspension bridge, and it's a masterpiece, in its own right. I feel like it's kind of overshadowed because there are a lot of bridges in New York City that people talk about, and this is one that's not really mentioned all that much. I feel like a lot of people will mention the Brooklyn Bridge and they'll mention, the George Washington, but people won't really bring up the Verrazano all that much, which I think is a little interesting. But I don't know, maybe it's the Staten Island thing. Who knows? But
maybe I don't know.
I don't know, but no, I've always really liked the Verrazano too. Just the look of it, and when you drive it, when you go through the first tower, and you see the other one way off in the distance there, and it's what is it, like 3/4 of a mile to the other tower on the other side there, or something like that. I mean, that is some major league engineering that it took to build that thing. And I think they incorporated the curvature of the earth when they were surveying the towers, because the towers are further apart at the top than they are at the base because they're so far apart from each other. So
which
direction, really cool engineering stuff.
Which direction you like going? Because I'm on your channel here. I was going to roll some of the video. Which way do you like going, into Staten Island or coming back to Brooklyn? You think's the better? We're going to do the upper roadways, is the lower.
I like going into Brooklyn because you get the ramps off to the Belt Parkway and stuff and that kind of thing too. Yeah.
There we go. Let's do this. That up. There we go. And this whole thing has changed dramatically. I mean, you put this video up coming up on 4 years. This is dramatically changed as well, coming into this whole interchange with the lower roadway and, from what it used to be.
Yeah. So they added the central HOV lane, I think, on the upper level.
Yep.
And more recently, they've started two-way toll collection here, so now there's actually a toll gantry in this direction as well. Historically, it was only on the Staten Island bound lanes, but then there's another set of gantries in this direction too. I will have to get out this way to kind of redocument that at some point. But no, this is a fantastic drive too. And I guess this video is going to take you onto the belt ramp, but when you take the ramp to the belt and you make that loop around back towards the bridge itself, that's another great view. That's another great favorite of mine.
Right there. There you go.
Yeah. So as you take this ramp around and you're treated to the bridge, nice view of it right there.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful the way they, like you said, they carved this into that whole neighborhood in Brooklyn and, in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And, it's it's a really great looking bridge and feat of engineering, call it that too. It's just a beautiful, beautiful bridge, especially even on this shot here of the belt coming back on the westbound belts coming out of coming through Bath Beach and onto the ramp to the Verrazano here. But that shot of just seeing the bridge in the background, I think I've have a picture I took of a sunset or something when I was going out to Long Island, because this is the way I would go, was the belt. I think I have a photograph somewhere of that, but yeah, you get some really great views here as well of the Verrazano. So let's do this since we only got about 5 minutes here. Gosh, there's so much more I want to talk to you about, and my head is just spinning. I mean, there's so many different angles we can get into, but let's do this. We'll do rapid fire here just for the city for right now, since we're on it. Give me your favorite roadway in each of the boroughs. So you got 5 roads to choose from, even a bridge or whatever that you think are good, and we'll put you on the clock in 30 seconds for each for all of them.
Manhattan, I'd say the FDR Drive. Although
Okay.
that one, Manhattan's tough because
Yeah.
you could say the FDR, you could say the Henry Hudson Parkway. You know, I think those are 1A and 1B for me
Uh-huh.
in Manhattan. Really great scenic drives, really great urban drives as well. Those are ones that I feel really nostalgic about, you know, since when I was a kid.
Mhm.
The Bronx, this answer is going to probably surprise you, but I really like the Cross Bronx. And I
Oh,
say that
yeah.
because I never drive it Monday to Friday. If you drive it westbound on Sunday morning at 7 a.m.,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nobody on it. It's a
Right.
really interesting trip.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
I agree with you on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy to really curse out that road because of all the nonsense and all the
Sure.
congestion that
Yeah.
it sees. But if you catch it on a day when, you know, in a period when there's no traffic on it, it's a
Uh-huh.
really fascinating trip. Um, so I'd have to say that. Queens, what would I say about Queens? Well, I love the Clearview Expressway because it allows me to bypass the Cross Island Parkway when I'm
I
going
was
out to
just
Long
about ready to say that. That is the best,
Island.
almost one of the best roads in all of New York City is 295 or the Clearview. There's
Yeah,
almost never anybody on it, barring some unforeseen catastrophe or incident or whatever.
of
But you're
course,
right about that.
and of course, part of that is because it only goes about half as far as it was intended to go. But
Uh-huh.
that's another
Uh-huh.
story that we could get into another day.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother. That's just a video in itself. I want to do with you. Just
And
you know,
probably, yeah,
roadways that were never finished, that were planned and never materialized or whatever. Oh God, yeah. There's
sure.
plenty to do that as well. All right, so the Clearview in Queens. What about Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, you know, we mentioned the belt along the lower and upper New York Bay there. That's a great drive, but
Uh-huh.
the one that I think of the most is the inbound. Again, this is another interesting answer, but the inbound side of the Gowanus Expressway.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you hit the top of the Gowanus
Yep.
Canal there, and you've got the
Yep.
view of Lower Manhattan.
Uh-huh.
That's a great New York City money shot right there.
Absolutely. Oh,
Again, one that you kind of have to hit right, you know, time wise, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
Sunday
yeah, yeah,
morning.
yeah,
But if you can hit it just right, it's
yeah.
a fantastic experience.
Apologize for I'm all over the map here. This mouse is not working the right way. I'm trying to get to that shot because if the camera's working, it will show what you're talking about here. It's this one. No, they got to turn the other way. Oh, come on. Where is it? Is it this one? Yeah, it's kind of it.
Part
Usually
of
it's a
it.
wider shot, but you can see, right. You can see the Freedom Tower, Lower
Yeah.
Manhattan here. I
That's
believe that this section here that years ago I saw with somebody doing traffic all over that I was that the cops used to call this the top of the world because as you got up to the top, you basically that's all you saw was all of New York City. You didn't see anything else once you got up to that section.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's a natural high point in that whole surrounding area.
correct.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Because the
Yeah.
Smith Street subway station, which I believe is still the highest subway station in the world, is not too far from here. It's off to the right. It's on that
Right.
side. At least the platform is concerned. I think it's
Yeah.
like 230 some odd feet, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and I was just through that station not long ago, and it's certainly the highest in the city subway system.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, but that's sometimes I'll take the F train out that way just
Okay.
to take the long way just so I can see that view from up there.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And Staten Island, we'll finish up with that one here, and then we'll kind of wrap up things for this video.
I know they don't call it the Richmond Parkway anymore. I think it's called the Korean War Veterans Parkway.
Yep, right
I
in
think
here.
that's what it's called. You know, it's short and it's sweet, and I think the reason why I'm attracted to it so much is because of the story of what didn't get built instead of the story of what was built.
That's right.
In fact, you can still see the unused overpasses on Arthur Kill Road. I think that is whatever that north-south surface road is there.
Right here,
Richmond Avenue. Yeah, that area there. You can still see the abandoned overpasses and roadways that were intended to extend to the northeast there. Yeah, so there's a lot of history with that road as well. So
yeah, because the ones on the expressway, they were all taken out when they redid expressway.
That's right. When they put the HOV lane in, is that what that was?
They wiped out all that whole section there. That was all up by Toad Hill Road. All was all that that right in that section where it was going to connect the ramps to nowhere. Yeah,
it was honestly, a three-way. Yeah, it was a three-way T interchange there that they built with the intention of connecting the Parkway in, and of course that never saw the light of day.
Right. I think that's where during the construction, I think that's where they parked a lot of the construction vehicles, was on that kind of dead ramp, just to get them out, up and out of the way.
That makes sense
for the road work.
Yeah.
But all right, Dan, I know you got to run, and
I do. I got to go to work. You know, my day is
Yeah.
completely backwards from most people. You know,
I
had
know.
I had my morning coffee at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
I get it. I did the overnights for 13 years. That was the only way I could stomach traveling from New Jersey to Long Island and doing the overnight. So I completely get it. You know, I used to have dinner when I got home at 7:30 in the morning. So full dinner at that point.
Yeah.
But so I get the whole the overnight stuff. But we will definitely obviously have you back again many times. I think there's so much more we have to get into. Obviously your home area up in the Hudson Valley, which is fascinating to me because that's one of the places that I don't know a whole lot about, and I want to pick your brain and get more from you. Obviously, we have Long Island and Connecticut, and you know, we didn't even touch on the Pittsburgh angle with one of the cities that you find, you know, one of your favorite cities in the country with the three rivers, the bridges and stuff. And I want to get more involved in that as well, because I think that's amazing stuff too. I've never been to Pittsburgh, but that's certainly someplace that I would like to go.
Absolutely.
But, so, all right. So let me show, let's see, here it is. Roadwaywiz. Let me go back. I got to pull up the homepage here. Is on the wrong page. No, I got it here. We'll do that. So everybody watching, go ahead and subscribe to Dan's YouTube channel, Roadwaywiz.
Yep, you can find me on Roadwaywiz on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook at Roadwaywiz. I also have an Instagram handle as well. I also do a bit of work for a blog site. It's called gribblnation.org.
Okay.
GRIBBLE nation.org. I have an article up this week on the construction of the new Gordie Howe International Bridge that's taking shape out in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
So you guys can check that out as well if you like that kind of stuff. And
I think
you know, I'm always up to something on the channel. So,
sure. Yeah, I think I found the Gribble Nation site here.
Yeah, there it is.
Pretty cool. Didn't even know this existed. This is wonderful. Is this it here? Gordie Howe?
Yeah, there it is. Yep. And so it's 4 of us who run that site, and we basically write and blog our way through our travels around the country, you know, picking out landmarks and talking about our travels and our experiences and stuff like that. And so I became a panelist on their site a little more than a year ago, full time. And I'm kind of in the process of carving out a niche devoted to construction projects and chronicling, you know, road improvements, bridge projects, stuff like that. So
awesome.
There's a wide palette of stuff out there on that site too, if that kind of thing interests you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So once again, Dan from Roadwaywiz, we thank you so much for joining us here on the Tri-State Traffic Show. Once again, make sure you subscribe to Dan's YouTube channel, Roadwaywiz, and the other social media platforms that he mentioned. Definitely subscribe, follow, all that social media kind of fun stuff that everybody's involved in these days. So Dan,
I'm all over the place. Yep.
There you go. You're all over the place, just like all of your videos are all around the country. You know, you're in all parts, so which is fantastic. So, Dan, Roadwaywiz, really appreciate your time here today on the Tri-State Traffic Show. Thanks a lot for joining us again. We'll schedule out a whole bunch more videos because we did barely just like scratch the surface with what we have here in just the Tri-State area alone, let alone some of the other places in the country. So, Dan, appreciate your time and thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much, Don, for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to next time for sure.
Great. All right. That is Dan from Roadwaywiz. We thank him very much for joining us here on the Tri-State Traffic Show. Make sure you subscribe to the Tri-State Traffic Show, friends. We are live Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on YouTube and on Facebook. Sometimes you do Twitch, sometimes you do Twitter. It just depends on kind of what mood I'm in, right? Depending on what's going on for the day. But make sure you subscribe to definitely the YouTube channel because we're on YouTube every single morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Joining myself as well as John Rocco, who is our chief meteorologist in training with the forecast. So you don't want to miss that. And joining our regular moderators in our chat room, comment section, Anna and Alexandra are two loyal viewers of the Tri-State Traffic Show. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. And my name is Odon here in the Tri-State Traffic Show Traffic Center in the driver's seat. And we'll see you next video. Take care, everybody.